Ivan Altamura on behalf of the California Retailers Association. We're in opposition to the bill.
Maureen Higgins, representing AbdoMed and Biocom, oppose unless amended.
Dennis Albiani on behalf of Grocery Manufacturers of America. We're opposed unless amended when we agree with the amendments that were discussed earlier today. Thanks.
Any other witnesses in opposition? Folks with testimony neither in support nor opposition? To the committee. Mr. Hadley.
Mr. Bloom, thank you for advancing the bill. Question, I wasn't in the assembly at the time, but if I understand, last year your proposed bill exempted prescription drugs from this treatment. Can you explain your thinking and your goals on that front?
Yes, that was one of a number of concessions that we made last year, Assemblymember Hadley, and the reason for exempting prescription drugs is that, first of all, they represent a fairly small segment of the overall product lines that use plastic microbeads, and also because there are no substitutes for some of these products, we felt it was appropriate to create an exemption, since they're necessary for health care.
But you're not creating an exemption in the bill this year?
Oh, yes, we are. I'm sorry. If that was the question, the exemption, we will continue to exempt them as we did last year, the prescription products.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Mr. Dolly.
So I'm under the interpretation that it is not exempted. Is it?
It is not exempted in the language. That is an amendment that we will be willing to make.
Okay. Well,
that's a good position for the committee to take, and a good position for the author to take, given the challenges of some of these products not having alternatives. I think that's a reasonable ask, and something that this committee can work with the author to accomplish. I'm also very encouraged by how close you and the industry have gotten. That is definitely encouraging. We would have probably waded in a little bit more to help, but it seems like you have it on your own, and we didn't want to hold this up because the bill is double referred, which puts the author on a tight timeline. And so the chair's recommendation for this very important bill is aye, and especially with this agreement that you will exempt prescription drugs as last year.
I'm going to see the bill again in toxic, so I'll be laying off of it and checking out those amendments, but I do want to try to get there on this bill.
Thank you.
Other comments from the committee? There was a... It's been moved by Mr. Stone and seconded by myself. Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly? Garcia? Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Harper? McCarty? Rendon? Stone? Aye. Stone, aye. Wood? Aye. Wood, aye. We've got 4 ayes.
You have 4 votes. Just need one more, and I'm sure they'll come back. We'll be here for a while. We'll take Assemblymember Irwin next. I think she's back there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to begin by accepting the committee's amendments to clarify that it is not the intent of this bill to establish a new diversion bill, and it is not the intent to give additional regulatory authority to Cal Recycle. AB 1045 requires that Cal EPA and Cal Recycle work together to establish a statewide policy to promote the use of compost. The bill also requires that Cal EPA, Cal Recycle, the State Water Board, and the Air Resources Board work together to coordinate and streamline regulations. The state has numerous goals relating to the creation and use of compost, including diverting waste from landfills to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, sequestering carbon, and reducing water consumption. To reach these state policy goals, a more coordinated effort is needed among state entities to coordinate the regulations associated with the production of compost. With me today is Katarina Robinson from the Environmental Energy Consulting to testify on behalf of the bill.
Thank you, Chair and members, for this opportunity to testify. Katrina Robinson on behalf of
There's
John
a motion by Stone, second by Wood. Please continue.
Sure. Co-founder of the Global Compost Project and the Marin Carbon Project. I'm pleased to support the bill, which provides better state coordination in achieving additional compost production in California. Currently, there's no statewide standard to promote compost facilities, and composting facilities are permitted by several agencies, and there's very few venues for those agencies to coordinate and collaborate on policies. California has set ambitious goals to divert 75% of organic material from landfills by 2020, and between that and organic material diverted, organic material from different waste streams like agriculture and forestry, we will need far more compost facility capacity than the state currently has. Further, developing additional compost for application on farmlands and rangelands improves the health of California's soils, as you've heard today from some other testimony. By applying compost to crops and to grasslands, you can mitigate greenhouse gases by reducing the need for synthetic fertilizers and also increasing carbon sequestration from the atmosphere and storing it deep in plant matter and soils. And second, farmers are using compost application as a drought adaptation strategy throughout the state because soils that are amended with compost hold substantially more water and therefore require less irrigation. So we can't make it rain, but when it does rain, we can use that water more effectively and store it in soils. I want to thank the Assembly member for authoring the bill and ask for your aye vote.
Other witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members, Mark Murray with the Environmental Group Californians Against Waste. This committee has taken the lead in terms of crafting our solid waste and recycling policy in the state. As was noted, we already have a 75% waste reduction and recycling goal for the state. We've also have legislation by the previous chairman of this committee to specifically divert the organic fraction from the waste stream. Now this bill is taking the next step in terms of making sure that a significant portion of that organic fraction goes to composting. That is coordination of the state agencies that are involved with this. There are emissions associated with composting activities. That's a regulated activity when it occurs at a site. Now obviously that organic fraction is decomposing in the natural environment all the time. So we're not increasing the amount of emissions. We're just focusing that at a specific project. We want to make sure that all the regulatory agencies that are involved in that activity are working together towards the same goal of increasing the diversion, increasing the composting, and managing all of those emissions. And as noted, there's a goal of 5 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emission reduction. We know simply by composting that organic fraction, we're going to achieve that goal. Ask for your aye vote on the measure.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mark Aprea on behalf of Republic Services. We want to thank Assemblywoman Irwin for bringing the matter before this committee and before the legislature. We support her bill and will associate our remarks with the two prior witnesses.
Mr. Chair, Justin Malone on behalf of the StopWaste.org and also the Community Alliance with Family Farmers. We're thrilled that the state is getting its act together to promote organic materials.
Kim China with the California Compost Coalition in support, and also asked to do a Me Too for CLCV. Thank you.
Sylvia Solis Shaw on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco and the Office of Mayor Ed Lee in support. Thank you.
Kelly Astor on behalf of the Los Angeles County Waste Management Association in support.
Kelly Jensen on behalf of Recology, the state's largest composter. We very much appreciate the legislation and know the chairman is helping us build our infrastructure around this important product. Thank you.
Dennis Albiani on behalf of Pacific Coast Energy Association, California Grain and Feed of California, and almond hullers and processors. We believe we support with the recent amendments that were taken and suggested by the committee. And we just want to point that there's a lot of other ways to recycle organics in California, and including rendering and cattle feed. And we look forward to working on this bill and believe that these recent amendments will help bring that forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in that testimony neither in support nor opposition? To the committee. Questions to the committee members. Mr. Hadley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may well be wrong on this, having only recently been handed the amendment, the amended language, and not having thought it all the way through necessarily in the short amount of time available. But for our regular deliberations in this committee, one of my focuses has been the appropriate relationship between the legislature and the regulatory bodies that we empower and direct. And I appreciate the spirit of the author's amendment, but it appears to me to make this bill more vague in all respects without depriving the fundamental purpose of the bill, which is to direct the Cal EPA to develop and implement policies. If I read this correctly, we are completely I'm not even going to say this correctly. We're completely ceding our authority to direct a policy in this important area to the regulatory bodies with no direction whatsoever, neither with time period nor amounts. And this is an important area, as we've discussed in other legislation today. And so I'm interested in the spirit of this legislation, but if this is just ceding the authority of the legislature to the regulatory bodies, I will have to stand in opposition to it.
Can I ask Mr. Hadley one question related to that? Does that mean you would support a 50% ban on organics in the landfill? Because if that's something you would support, maybe the authors would move in that other stronger direction. I think we were just trying to make a very pragmatic concession to local governments and industry that, frankly, there are conflicts in a push towards organics when you punish, when our federal air quality standards were developed at a time when non-point source pollution was not accounted for, and therefore for reducing pollution, you are punished for it. There are things like that. So, this is just an attempt to address those inconsistencies between agencies. So, I mean, do you want a hard timetable and ban on organics in the landfill? Is that what you're asking for?
No, that's not, Mr. Chairman. And again, I'm operating in real time with an amendment I was handed about 4 minutes ago. But the notion that the California EPA, in coordination with the department, shall develop and implement policies to aid in diverting organic waste from landfills, again, with both the 50% and the by 2020 stricken from the document, is essentially saying we're going to ask them to do what they want with composting. So and the organic waste stream. So I don't have a specific proposal in response to an amendment that I received only a few minutes ago, but this is very broad and entirely discretionary authority to the regulatory agency.
I'll let the author answer it, though I will also note that the minority staff received these amendments several days ago, so you cannot blame either the author nor the committee for whatever timeliness of you being aware of those amendments.
Well, from our standpoint, we are just working to streamline the process to implement policies that have already been established. And maybe you want to add to that.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Assembly Member. I also just wanted to say CalRecycle works on composting policies currently, and I think this is actually a great opportunity for the legislature to give some direction and say, what the state would like CalRecycle to focus on. Composting policy is sometimes forgotten in the discussion. So I think this is an opportunity to provide some direction. And although I agree with the author's intent to ensure that we don't put too many regulations and timelines down, it is offering some direction for authority that CalRecycle already executes to look at composting policy and landfilling policy in the state.
Any other questions from the committee? Would you like to close?
I would just like to add also that there was another recommendation from the committee to include CDFA in the process, make sure that they are consulted, and I respectfully ask for aye vote.
We have had a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly? Not voting. Garcia? Hadley?
Not voting.
Harper? McCarty? Rendon? Stone? Stone, aye. Wood? Wood, aye. We have 3 votes.
You have 3 votes. Most of the members are not here at this time. You need 2 more.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for hearing AB 1089. AB 1089 is a district bill, the Coachella Valley Mountain Conservancy bill, that proposes a simple fix to the exclusion of 2 cities in the organization. The cities are Indio and the city of Coachella. The sponsors, unfortunately, could not be here today, and they've assured me that by no means it has anything to do to it being the day after the Coachella Music Festival. In 1991, the Conservancy was put together by the California State Legislature in order to preserve the biodiversity and the ecology of the Coachella Valley's areas. The 2 cities were not included due to the fact that they are on the floor of the Coachella Valley and not adjacent to any of the mountain ranges. This bill is asking that those 2 cities be included. The sponsor of the bill is the Coachella Valley Mountains Conservancy, and it has support from the 2 cities, the city of Indio and the city of Coachella. I respectfully ask for your aye vote. Here to open any questions.
I have a motion and a second. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the
Thank you for presenting this this afternoon. What is the position of the 2 cities involved? Have they formally expressed a position on this bill?
I believe you should have an attachment to your committee analysis. They have supported the bill, both the city of Indio and the city of Coachella.
Thank you.
Seeing no other, the motion is to do pass 2 approves. Let's call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams? Dolly?
Aye.
Dolly, aye. Garcia? Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Harper?
Aye.
Harper, aye. McCarty? McCarty, aye. Rendon? Stone? Stone, aye. Wood? Wood, aye. It's got 6.
Bill's out. Thank you. Mr. Harper, would you like to present your bills? I can do that. Mr. McCarty, would you like to present your bill?
Sure.
Take it AB 450, item number 9.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members. I'm pleased to present AB 450, which would allow cap-and-trade auction revenue to be allocated to the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program in California, both helping clean energy programs and water upgrades. As we know, California has been a leader in efforts for both energy efficiency and clean energy generation. In an effort to continue this leadership, the governor at his state address called for the ambitious goal of increasing energy efficiency. Energy upgrades for property owners offer significant benefits, Not only do they reduce the need to build more emissions-producing power plants, they reduce the ratepayer's utility bill. And this marriage of environmental policy and cost effectiveness has made these upgrades very popular in California through programs like PACE. It's an innovative financing tool which allows property owners to finance clean energy upgrades and water upgrades through their property tax bills. It is often the most attractive option for both borrowers and lenders because it offers a longer payback period and lower payments. As a former council member here in Sacramento, I was personally involved with establishing our PACE program and saw firsthand its benefits. Many property owners have the desire to upgrade to more efficient windows, heating, cooling systems, lighting, insulation, and so forth. PACE programs allow property owners to take advantage of these upgrades and avoid significant upgrade costs. Most of these upgrades result in significantly increased utility and emissions as well. There are nearly $500 million in PACE projects in California, but it can be expanded extremely if allocated more revenue, such as an opportunity to increase the loan loss reserve program here in California through cap and trade revenues, or focusing on incentive-based efforts like we see with alternative zero-based or zero emissions cars. With me today are two witnesses, one from the practical side as far as an administrative of PACE programs and a local government rep as well.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Cisco DeVries. I'm the CEO of Renewable Funding, a finance company based here in California, here in support of AB 450. As you heard, PACE is property assessed clean energy. Allows you to pay for clean energy, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and water efficiency improvements to your home or business, and repay it as a line item on your property tax bill. It is a voluntary program, and it has regularly received bipartisan support through the legislature. 2 years ago, the state of California created a reserve program for PACE that helped open up the market for residential PACE projects across the state. The vast majority of local governments in the state of California now participate in a PACE program, and as you heard, it is growing and it already exceeded $500 million. This reserve was designed to help to address issues raised by federal regulators related to PACE projects and the assessment liens that are associated with them. There's still more work to be done to complete that, and I think that this reserve, in addition to allowing to grow the amount of finance projects, will be an important step providing a stable long-term source of capital for this reserve program and for residential PACE. If AB 450 goes forward, I think we'll continue to see a lot of good growth in this program. And just as a reminder, 1% penetration of PACE into the residential homes will create 72,000 projects, 18,000 jobs, and deliver $1.7 billion of private capital into the marketplace. So this has been one of the most successful programs really in state history, and thank you for letting me speak to it today.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I am Janine Windishausen, Placer County Treasurer Tax Collector and Program Administrator for Empower Placer, which is a PACE program operating in Placer County and the city of Folsom. In the last 18 months, we have done over $25 million in PACE financing that we have provided to both residential and non-residential property owners, creating over 200 local jobs and moving residents and businesses closer to energy independence and making significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. We support the use of cap and trade revenues to support PACE as proposed in this bill. There are a number of ways that the state support could help to significantly increase the uptake of PACE, resulting in greater greenhouse gas emissions and job reductions through a variety of incentives, rebates, and those types of things, as well as addressing any lender concerns as the PACE loss reserve has already done.
Mr. Chair, Justin Malone for the U.S. Green Building Council in California. We've been long-standing supporters of PACE. We believe this is the most efficient and effective way of leveraging money and getting those deep green retrofits that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do. We urge your aye vote.
Other witnesses, just state your name, organization, and in support.
Sure. Kara Martinson on behalf of the California State Association of Counties in support.
Tiffany Whiten on behalf of the Energy Efficiency Industry Council in support. Thank you.
Matt Kloppenstein on behalf of the Sacramento Municipal Utility District and the California Solar Energy Industry Association, both in support.
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club California in support.
Any witnesses in opposition? Any witnesses with testimony neither in support nor opposition? To the committee. Any questions, comments? Mr. Harper?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for presenting this bill. I've been supportive of this for energy programs in the past and am excited to see its expansion. My understanding, just to clarify, is that in a real estate transaction, the entire balance could be paid for rather than allowing the balance to be carried over to the new property owner. Could you just clarify that for me?
Yes, that option is available. Otherwise, it stays on the property tax bill for the subsequent owner.
Excellent. So the property owner has the option of just paying it completely off if they felt they wanted to do so, or allowing the new property owner who benefits from the improvements of the property to be able to continue to pay. It's the seller's option.
It's subject to negotiation in each individual transaction.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Chairman.
Comments or questions from the committee? I think this is a great model for those that are, the many that are jockeying for cap and trade funds, to have a bill that is non-fiscal but deals with the policy end of a negotiation over a budget amount, which is just to allow this to qualify. I think it's a great model. I wish other folks who are doing budget bills through policy bills would use this as a model. The chair's recommendation is aye. Motion and a second by Stone and Dolly. Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly? Aye. Dolly, aye. Garcia? Hadley? Aye. Hadley, aye. Harper?
Aye.
Harper, aye. McCarty?
Aye.
McCarty, aye. Rendon? Stone? Aye. Stone, aye. Wood? Aye. Wood, aye. The bill is out.
Your bill is out, Mr. McCarty. At the so we'll need another author to step forward. Oh, you have two.
I'll just hang out here all afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Your compostable organics bill, please.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm pleased to present AB 876, which will require local governments to include composting anaerobic digestion facilities in their countywide siting plan. Specifically, this bill will require local governments to create a 15-year plan to estimate the amount of organic waste they will generate and a plan for establishing an infrastructure necessary to process that waste. As of right now, local governments are required to do this for solid waste, but this would include that to focusing on organic waste and anaerobic facilities. In Sacramento, again, as a council member, I witnessed firsthand to see a great project here, an anaerobic digester held by Clean World Technology, which is becoming a model throughout the nation and California. And we need to make sure that local governments and counties have the facts and program that's necessary to process this organic waste in the future. And this really builds upon last year's AB 826, which set requirements but didn't necessarily set a plan for the siting of these facilities. And this would help with job creation, better soil, cleaner air, and clean energy from the organic waste recycling as well. And respectfully ask for your aye vote. And with me here today is Nick Lapis from Californians Against Waste and Justin Milan from Stop Waste.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. Our first team had to leave, so you're stuck with me. So just a really simple point. Back in 1989, the legislature mandated the local governments had to plan for and account for 15 years of solid waste disposal capacity. That's been a mandate in place since 1989, and this isn't just a one-time deal. This is something they have to constantly do. And it made sense because we were disposing of 90% of our solid waste and we were only recycling about 10%. So this is an existing requirement on local governments. What we're doing is evolving that. Now we have a 75% waste reduction and recycling goal. The legislation that passed last year requires diversion of all of that organic fraction. So it makes perfect sense to now say, take that exact same concept of having local government plan for and account for 15 years of capacity, instead of just doing that on disposal, doing that on organics, composting, and anaerobic digestion. When it comes to recycling, we've had a recycling mandate of 50 and now 75% for 2 decades. Recycling is done almost entirely by the free market, but local governments have a significant hand in the establishment and the creation of composting capacity. So it's really important that local governments have this responsibility for identifying and establishing that capacity for the organics fraction. Again, it's parallel to what they are already required to do on disposal capacity. We urge your aye vote.
Mr. Chair, Justin Malone for the Alameda County Waste Management Authority. By the name implies, we are a local government, and we believe that you cannot just wish for this infrastructure to take place. You've got to plan for it. It's a modest measure. It will cost some money, as you will hear from the opposition, but it's well worth it. If we're going to meet our 75% diversion goal, we've got to plan for it, and this is all this calls for, is a plan. So we urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Chair and members. Katrina Robinson on behalf of the Carbon Cycle Institute and John Wick, co-founder of the Global Compost Project and the Marin Carbon Project, in support. Thanks.
Kim Shai with the California Compost Coalition, in support. Thank you.
Kelly Astor on behalf of the Los Angeles County Waste Management Association, the Solid Waste Association of Orange County, and the Inland Empire Disposal Association, in support.
Kathy Lynch, Association Compost Producers, in support.
Witnesses in opposition?
Good afternoon, Kara Martinson on behalf of the California State Association of Counties, here regrettably in opposition today. First, I would like to say that we do agree with the intent or the objective of the bill, and that is to plan for organics recycling infrastructure in California. Unfortunately, we just take issue with the process outlined in the bill. CSAC and my colleague here from RCRC were very involved last year in the development and the passage of AB 1826 by Assemblymember Chesbro, and that is the bill that created the commercial organics recycling program in California. That bill also requires local governments to develop a local organics management plan. Included in that plan is information about siting and capacity and needs of organic recycling infrastructure in those jurisdictions. CalRecycle is then required to approve those plans and also look at some siting on the challenges on the state level. Unfortunately, we don't think that the county-wide siting element is the appropriate place for this planning to take place. Currently, I think organics and recycling planning activity is included in the non-disposal recycling element. And we do think that as AB 1826 was passed last year and locals are beginning to engage in the development of these programs, that we should let that process play out and let that planning take place within those documents.